What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, the Colts are officially under some new ownership. The longtime owner, Jim Irsay, passed away earlier this last month, and now his daughters will be taking over full time for the Colts moving forward. And officially, their positions have been finally announced to the public. A lot of this stuff is going to come from Stephen Holder's X page and James Boyd's X page. So if you guys want to check those out, I highly suggest you do so. All three daughters, Cody, are now going to transition to owners. So all of them will still be staying with the Colts, and they will all have ownership stake in it somewhere. So specifically, Carly will be the owner plus CEO. So she's technically going to be the principal owner. So while all three girls do have some ownership of the team, Carly is the one where basically all the decisions are going to run through her. She's going to be the top boss. So there's that. Casey will be owner plus executive vice president. And Kaylin will be owner plus chief brand officer and president of the Indianapolis Colts Foundation. So that is officially their titles. Stephen also saying that if anyone is wondering, the NFL requires that teams designate a principal owner. So that's why Carly is specifically that. Again, this is really to no surprise to anyone. Carly has, been on the sidelines for the last couple years, learning about this stuff, getting acclimated with how the team does their operations. And her sisters are obviously have been a part of the Colts planning and doing organized stuff for years. So it's not like this is anything new to this family. And honestly, Cody, I don't really think a lot is going to change. But obviously now just new ownership and how it's going to turn out is yet to be seen.
Yeah, for sure. I think like you said, like the good thing is with all these girls is they've been involved for a long time. And like it's not just like this, like for example with Carly, like it's not like she's just stepping in having no prior experience. Like she's been on the sideline, she's been doing things. I mean, even the last couple of years with Jim Irsay's health declining, like she's been doing more of that stuff. So while it maybe hasn't been official behind the scenes, I think she's been doing a lot of the stuff that maybe we don't fully realize in the moment. So it may not be anything too crazy from what we saw for her. Like it's not like obviously the role change is going to be official, but it does seem like it is something that maybe they've been kind of already doing behind the scenes a little bit. And, now obviously with Jim passing away, it is now officially their franchise to run. It's their franchise to take forward. It's their franchise to, be whatever they want it to be. Right. So that's kind of what I'm thinking is like this was all in preparation. Like they knew this day, unfortunately, like it is with anybody, it was going to come one day. So they wanted to get prepared for whenever that passing of the torch did happen. And so that is the good thing about it is that even though Jim is gone, he does have daughters who are fully capable of taking it and running with it for the next generation of Colts fans. So that is the good thing about what all these three daughters have. And, I do think like, Carly's a little bit behind the scenes. We don't see her a whole lot. We don't hear from her a whole lot. Kaylin's kind of more of the face from what we've seen, right? You see her a lot more, on social media and stuff like that. Like it does seem like these roles kind of fit them and their personalities and kind of where they go as far as, the operations go for this team. So I'll say this, man, I'm excited for kind of the change here and excited for this new era of Colts football that we're going to be entering here. And, I'm curious, Carly, for, she's obviously seen it been done just like Jim did with his dad for years. She saw how it was done. She saw good. She saw bad. She saw a little bit of everything. So I'm curious kind of what her ownership style is, because we love Jim Irsay. He was a great owner. He did so many awesome things for Indianapolis. Obviously, we know he had his demons. He had his flaws as an owner, like as every owner does, as every person does. So I'm curious kind of where we see Carly kind of change some things about this team. Like, for example, I know a lot of people have pointed to, obviously the elephant in the room with the current regime. Where do we go from here with this stuff? How does she handle it? How is she different from Jim? How is she similar to Jim? I'm just so curious to see, because this is just so unknown and so new. What does this team look like from a more of a CEO standpoint from what Carly's going to do? Because for the thing of the actual where the organization's going to go in terms of personnel, coaches, front office, all that stuff, like she's going to be handling a large majority of that stuff, right? So I'm very curious, kind of like what does happen, what changes do we see, with her? So there's just a lot of unknowns, but I'm optimistic, man, because Colts fans haven't had, frankly, a lot to be optimistic about the last couple of years. It's been kind of rough, especially this last year. So I'm excited to see this new era of Colts football with the three daughters.
And so to read a little bit more from what Stephen Holder put out, maybe to give insight as to what the girls will be doing. And, it's kind of good that, all three of them are going to have a particular role in how this team is ran. And some people may not love what I'm about to read, but I think in all honesty, it kind of makes sense. So this is what Stephen Holder was tweeting. And I got a couple of these tweets, Cody, so bear with me here. He says, my 2 cents, based on available evidence and relevant conversations, the Irsay sisters are serious people and will have a different management style than their father. My view is they see themselves as running a business first, even if there is still a bit of a family atmosphere. And to continue more of these, says, if you're wondering about the contrast in styles from Jim Irsay to his daughters, the biggest and most immediate difference is presence. Carly and Kaylin, in particular, are very present. Carly is in the office almost daily. This will be much, much more hands-on. And he elaborates even more and says, Jim Irsay's place in NFL history is secure, but he was very much not present the last few years. How that impacted things is impossible to know from the outside, but he was barely around, and that's a fact. Clears it up and says that's a lot of other NFL owners, but he's saying he's just drawing the distinction. Said one example of their level of involvement, Carly and Kaylin participated in the initial round of interviews that led to Shane Steichen's hiring in 2023, and said there were more than a dozen. Jim Irsay did not participate at all until the final round. So, I mean, you're getting this here, Cody, that, Carly and Kaylin were very much involved in helping to get Shane Steichen here to Indianapolis. We obviously felt like they were going to be very hands-on with all three of them now in the building. That very much seemed likely. The one thing I think a lot of people are going to start wondering about is like them viewing this as like a business type of thing, which I don't know why people would think that's weird, because the NFL is a business. It is a business. Owning an NFL team is a business. That's why a lot of times these CEOs and these owners, they don't really care too much to interact with the players because they view it as a business. Now, I mean, that's not to say that, they're going to be more hands-on, as in they're still going to be on the sidelines. They're still going to interact with players. They're still going to try to create a friendly atmosphere. But obviously they're coming into this with like, not saying like they have no experience, but like this is their first time probably having to handle anything of this magnitude. So at first you kind of have to run this thing as a business until you get a better handle on it.
Right. Yeah. For sure. And honestly, like, I think that's going to be refreshing to Colts fans, to be real with you, because like, as much as we love Jim Irsay, love the family atmosphere, like all that stuff, I mean, at the end of the day, Derek, it is a business. Like, and you don't win by, doing all that all the time necessarily. Like, that's important. Don't get me wrong. With the family values, all that stuff, that's fine. That's good. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a business. And I think that's one of the biggest frustrations for Colts fans really over the past decade and a half has been that problem, Derek, where it's like there's almost too much family loyalty, if you will, like where you stick with a guy like Ryan Grigson for far too long. You stick with a guy like Chris Ballard for far too long. Like you let these things go out and the results aren't the excellence that you were used to for the better half of a decade. Like it just wasn't the same because that was all down to business. Like that was with Bill Polian and those boys, like that was down to business. If you don't do your job, like you're out of here. Like we obviously the family piece is important, but also there's another piece of like we want to win. And I think that's what fans want more than anything is like we want to be competitive. We want to win. We want to be back to those glory days. We even want to win the division. I mean, Derek, for the first time in over a decade, we want to actually be relevant. We haven't been relevant for so long, really since 2019. We haven't been relevant, honestly. So I think for fans, that's definitely a breath of fresh air is like, if the Daughters have any sort of competitive, side that Jim has, then I think they're in good hands because we know Jim's competitive, but sometimes I think the family aspect, especially really after Peyton Manning and that whole Andrew Luck era on, it's kind of been the Achilles heel of this team and this organization. It's been almost too much on the family side and not as much on the business side of things. And the reality is we're trying to be successful. We're trying to win. We're trying to win Lombardis. We're trying to do these things that every franchise is doing. And not to say that Jim didn't want to do that. Don't get me wrong there. But you know what I mean? Like business has to come first at the end of the day because that's what you're running. And, you want players to be here and be here for the long haul. But at the end of the day, if it's best for the organization, that's what should matter, Derek. That is what ultimately should matter for you to be a successful team. I mean, you look at some of the most successful teams, it's those teams that had that mindset. It was all about business. We're going to do what it takes to win. And if there's a weak spot or if there's things that we can improve on, we're going to do it. That's what I think you need to do. If you're, these new owners, if you're the Irsay girls, you got to do that. And definitely seems like early on, that's definitely a breath of fresh air. But again, time will tell how this goes.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. And, again, he's right. Like Irsay hasn't really had much involvement in the Colts since 2023, right? Like the last time that Irsay really did anything to impact, trying to get anything accomplished for the Colts was the Jonathan Taylor contract, right? And I mean, honestly, that and how much he had to deal with it, I don't really think it was much, but that's one of the last few times that Irsay was really like around, doing stuff like that. So obviously, and Holder brings up a great point, like how much that impacts the building going forward is unknown from the people on the outside. But you do have to wonder if that is a true statement. Is that something that carries a lot of weight? Because if you go from an owner that was insanely hands-on to then all of a sudden, the last 3 years when his health has declined and all of this stuff, Cody, right? Like, the whole Andrew Luck thing happened here. Irsay was always hands-on with that. Even post that, Irsay was still hands-on with it. Colts kind of rebounded. And then, we saw in 2022, his health started declining. He started taking a step back. He wasn't as involved as much. Even in times when he was involved, he was doing it out of his own, trying to, make a statement for himself. And then in 2023, things start changing. And obviously his daughters are starting to, do more than he is at that point. And, things have just kind of gone off the rails a little bit in certain ways. And you got to wonder how much more effective or efficient the Colts can become, knowing that the owners are not only in the building, but are actively involved in every step going forward.
Yeah, that could definitely be a blessing and a curse. If there's certain ways where it's like, okay, I'm going to let the guys that I hire, or the people that I hire, I'm going to let them do their jobs. I think there's a fine line that you got to strike there. Is like you want to be involved, but also you need to know when it's time to cut the cord. Like you almost need to find that perfect balance of like, hey, we need to give them more time, or we need to cut the cord, and know when that middle ground is, when is the right perfect time to do what it takes to make this organization the best. And sometimes it doesn't feel like the team has always done that in a timely manner. So that is going to be really interesting moving forward, because I feel like when Irsay has done it, things have happened more when he's been more involved. Like you said, like different things have gone on in the building, more moves, and it's not always been perfect, but there's been more moves to actually make this team relevant. And so I'm hopeful that in those ways that will be similar from a hands-on perspective, like you said.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. That is the take on the Irsay daughters' roles with the team and where it is going forward. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much. And as always, go Colts.